defamation as crime. A criminal prosecution that is inexpensive and quick becomes handy tool to silence critics. So defamation as crime. So what is defamation? Defamation means that it just means that um, criticizing someone. So in this case, defamation or criticizing someone is taken as crime. A criminal prosecution that is inexpensive and quick becomes a handy tool to silence critics. So a criminal prosecution means the way of charging a criminal. Um, it becomes very inexpensive. It becomes very cheap or or it does not cost that much, and quick. It becomes inexpensive or cheap, and it also becomes quick. Means the process could be done much faster, and it becomes a handy tool to silence critics. So when the process is inexpensive and happens very quick, it has a high potential, or it has a high capacity to silence the critics. Some judicial verdicts acquire emblematic significance far beyond the outcome of a particular case. The acquittal of journalist Priya Ramani of the charging of defaming M.J. Akbar, a former union minister, journalist and author, has protected and preserved the space for women who have found their voice in the recent times to speak out about their experience of sexual harassment in workplace. So, uh, so the journalist Priya Ramani, she has charged, and she is a journalist, and she has charged a case against M.J. Akbar. M.J. Akbar, he was a former union minister. He was a former union minister. He was an author, and he was also a journalist, like Priya Ramani, the person who filed the case. Um, and Priya Ramani, she filed this case she filed this case, and she defamed him. She defamed M.J. Akbar, who was a former union minister and journalist and a author. And by doing so, Priya Ramani, she has protected, and she has given out the message that nowadays, even women have the courage, or the braveness and the power to come up with the problems, and solve them. In this case, the problem was sexual harassment. She was not feared at all, and with great courage, she went to the court, and she went to the police station, and she filed the case. So that was very brave of her, and this is a very good step, and this was a very good step by her, because even women have all the rights equal as men. So by doing so, she has once again remembered everyone that the space for women who have found their voice in recent times, out about their experience of sexual harassment. A conviction in this case would have had disastrous consequences for the many courageous women who have come out with disturbing revelations about the extent to which a large number of professions and fields in country have been unsafe. So a conviction in this case would have been disastrous would have had disastrous consequences for the many courageous women. So a conviction in this case, um, in most of the situations, while fighting these types of cases, um, the the courageous women who file these cases, most of the time they will be having many problems, because many professions in India, or many fields of occupations in India, are unsafe, especially for women, be it in media, as in this case, or any other domain. The reality that many women suffer in silence in the face of the harassment, especially in early stages of their career, has been brought to the force by the newfound space and freedom to share their experiences, even if it be after many years. So we have a bad news and we have a good news. The bad news is that, as I said, um, especially for women, almost every occupation, and every field of profession in India are unsafe, especially for women. So for example, if you take this case, it's the domain, or it's the area of journalism. She was a reporter. She was a journalist. So she may face some problems after this, and she may not. But she was very courageous enough to come up, and to say to the public. Um, And the thing is, this is the bad news, and the good news is that um, she came up with the she came up with this case um, at some point of time. She may not have come up with this case immediately after she was harassed, or something like that. Um, she took her time, and she came up, and filed a case against him. So that was a good initiative by her. Mr. Akbar's case was rooted in the claim that he had a stellar reputation as a highly respected journalist and an accomplished writer. When we talk about Mr. Akbar, his reputation, in his reputation, he was noticed to be very respectable, um, he was a respected and a very accomplished writer, and a journalist. However, the court found the testimony of Mrs. Ramani and Ghazala Wahab, another journalist who testified in her defense, to be credible and detailed enough to question the reputation that he was so strenuously trying to uphold. So, um, there was also another witness, or there was also another person on the side of the journalist Priya Ramani, and she was Ghazala Wahab. Um, he, um, he, he or she he or she was also a supporter of Ramani, and they were and the person was on her side, was on Ramani's side, and both of them together questioned the reputation, questioned the right of Mr. Akbar to sexually harass her. A welcome feature of the judgment is that the court was receptive to the defense that Mrs. Ramani's claims were true and made for the public good. So a welcome feature is that, a very unfortunate thing is that, um, the judgment of the court was that, they believed Ramani's words, and Wahab's words, and they charged Mr. Akbar, charged Mr. Akbar. So it's a very fortunate thing that the court believed her, and the justice happened to him. Additional Chief Metropolitan Magistrate Ravindra Kumar Pandey has placed the case in the correct perspective by noting that a woman cannot be punished for criminal defamation when she raises her voice against sexual harassment, because the right of reputation cannot be protected at the cost of the right of the life and dignity of the woman. Um, so, Additional Chief Metropolitan Magistrate Ravindra Kumar Pandey has placed the case in the correct perspective by nothing that. So he has said that. So obviously, what Priya Ramani has done, that was a very good thing, and on top of all, that was a very courageous thing. Another good thing is that the court did not charge Priya Ramani. The court, it did not charge Priya Ramani, um, because of defamation, of a former respected journalist and author. So it's a very fortunate thing that, the court believed her words, and the court did not, disrespect the woman, and believed her words, and found out that, her words were true, and charged the former union minister and journalist. So basically, what I'm saying is that, the court it gave a value for the woman's speech, no matter how hard it was to value her speech, because obviously, filing a case against a former union minister who had a very respectable reputation and who was also a very accomplished writer, it's not an easy task. Even though, the court, it valued the facts or the words of Priya Ramani and Wahab, and without disrespecting a woman's voice, the court did the right thing. They punished Mr. Akbar. So that's what, the additional chief metropolitan magistrate Ravindra Kumar Pandey, had right to say. He has taken note of the unequal equations of power between the harasser and the victim in most situations. So, he has also said that the reason why this happened is because of the unequal power distribution. So, and what he means by that is that, So take the case of Mr. Akbar. As I said, he was a very successful former union minister, and his reputation it was very respectable, and he was a well accomplished author. So so no one would be as courageous as Mr. Priya Ramani to come up against him and file a case against him of sexual harassment. That was very brave of her. Um, and what he's saying is that the reason why this happened is because, as I said, Mr. Akbar right now he's a very powerful person, and whereas Priya Ramani she may be a starter or she may be a beginner, and she doesn't have that much of power around her. So the reason why she got harassed is it may be because of the unequal distribution of the power between the harasser or Mr. Akbar and Priya Ramani. Given that it may result in loss of dignity and self-confidence at that time, the court underscored that a woman has right to put her grievance at any platform of her choice and even after decades. So while sexual harassment happened to her, obviously like any other person, she would be very depressed and she would have lost so much self confidence. But the important and the amazing thing is that she regained it back. It doesn't matter how much time she took for that, and the most important thing is that she regained it back at all costs. She got her self confidence back. She got her courageous nature back, and she went to the court and she told everything about it. The court will always value um, the woman's voice, or any other's voice for that matter. No matter if that happens even after decades, or years after the situation took place. So at any time when a woman wants to file a case, or any person wants to file a case against sexual harassment or anything like that, they always have the right to come up at any platform, not only at court. They can come up with the case at any platform, and they have the right to put it to the public or to the police at any after any amount of time, after any amount of time the situation happened, or when they experience the particular events. It may appear to be a sweeping statement that opens up the possibility of incidents from the distant past to be raked up to the determinant of anyone's reputation. However, the court places it in the context of the need for the women to have freedom, equality, equal opportunities, and social protection if they were to excel in an atmosphere in which their workforce participation is undesirably low. So the court, as it should, it's supporting equality of women, um, and it also supports that women should have the equal freedom, as men, and equal opportunities and social protection too. In this backdrop, it is unfortunate that the criminal defamation still survives in the statute book, thanks to a 2016 Supreme Court verdict upholding it. So, in this backdrop, means in this background, it is unfortunate that criminal defamation. It is very unfortunate thing is that the undesired. It is a very unfortunate thing that um, casting defamation as a crime is still one of the things in the Indian laws. But the reason why in this case Priya Ramani was not charged with the crime of defamation is that there is other law in the Indian Constitution, um, not a law in the Indian Constitution. It was a verdict given by the Supreme Court in 2016. So thanks to that verdict, um, in this case, Priya Ramani was not filed because she was not filed with crime of defamation. Um, and all of us, including her, should thank the 2016 Supreme Court verdict, which upholded the law, which upholded the which upholded situation of charging Priya Ramani with defamation as crime. A criminal prosecution is quicker and less expensive, making it a handy tool to silence more critics and detractors. The time may have come to decriminalize defamation so that those who suffer injury to their reputation are left only with a civil remedy. Um, so the time may have come to so now may be the time to oppose defamation so that who suffer in pain because of the harassment in this case or any sort of defamation um, to their reputation are left only with a civil remedy. So thank you.